So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're going to take a look at something that people have been asking for quite a while now, my carrier prime setup. So I'm using a pretty simple 3 Forma build, and I've added 3 Ds. Now as you can see, Coolant Leak is in the wrong slot, but it doesn't matter because even if we max all the mods out, they're still gonna fit, okay? So let's take a look at the abilities that I'm using first. So I'm using Vacuum because using a carrier without Vacuum would be a dumb thing to do, and this will basically just vacuum items to your inventory. Now, some people say that you don't need to rank up the ability cards because it doesn't do anything, and that is false. Because for instance with Vacuum, it increases the range of Vacuum, so please max out your ability cards. Then I'm using Regen, so if my carrier dies, he will regenerate once, and then if he dies again, he will be gone for the rest of the mission or until I revive myself. And once again, you want to max this card out because the higher the rank, the more health he will regenerate with. Then I'm using Striker because without it, my carrier would simply not shoot, and once again you want to max this out so he will target enemies that are farther away. Guardian is a must-have for all Sentinels in my opinion, because what it does is when your Warframe shields run out, your Sentinel will boost them back up, and once again the higher the rank, the more shields he will boost. And Coolant Leak is the final ability that I'm using, which is awesome because it projects a small AoE around your Sentinel and it will slow enemies down. Now, it's not as effective as, let's just say, a cold proc, but it still slows enemies down, so it's a nice bit of crowd control. Then I'm using all 3 defensive mods because I want my carrier to be as tanky as possible, so I'm using Steel Fiber, Vitality, and Redirection. Now, unfortunately, I don't have them maxed out because it's not my priority, but I have them 1 rank from the top, and this gives me enough health, armor, and shields, even though shields aren't very high, but they do regenerate, so I'm still using all 3 of them. And then I'm using Sanctuary, which is an amazing mod that will cause your Sentinel to create a shield around you when you're reviving an ally. And as you go up in ranks with this, the shield becomes very strong. And I've seen people with maxed out Sanctuary, and they were able to revive in a level 100 sortie with enemies firing at them from all angles. And the Sanctuary shield held up for the entire duration of the revive. So even if you don't max this out, the shield will still be very strong. And finally, I'm using Animal Instinct, which is the best mod ever added to this game. Okay, it's a combination of loot radar and enemy radar. So it helps you when you're looking for loot, generally, but it's incredibly useful when you're, for instance, looking for the Syndicate medallions in Syndicate missions. And the enemy radar is also incredibly useful because we all know that situation when there is one enemy on the map and you have no idea where he is. This will help you find him. Now, the weapon I chose for my carrier is Sweeper Prime because I use rifles more than I use shotguns, so I don't have to swap it out as much. Now, this is a 0 Forma build, even though you can see I've put 2 Forma onto it, but you don't have to do that, okay? Basically, in the beginning, I was going for a full damage build, so I've put a dash in there, but later on, I've changed my mind, and I'm going more for a status/crowd control build instead, so I had to reformat it to a V. Now, the mods I'm using are Point Blank for more damage, Hell's Chamber for multi-shot, and then I'm using Shotgun Spaz and Accelerated Blast for fire rate. And this will put your fire rate up to 2.5, which means your carrier is going to fire much faster, and he's also going to proc more status. Now, I was thinking about using Frail Momentum, but in my opinion, it's not worth sacrificing the damage for that little bit of fire rate, because with Frail Momentum, you're going to get a fire rate of 2.8, and your damage is going to go down, all of your damage, by the way. And with Accelerated Blast, you're going to get slightly more puncture damage, which isn't that big of a deal, but your fire rate will be at 2.5, which in my opinion is enough. And you know, even though this is a status/crowd control build, your carrier is still going to do pretty decent damage, as you will see in the gameplay later on. And finally, I'm using 4 dual stat mods, so Shell Shock and Toxic Barrage for corrosive damage and a lot of status chance, and Frigid Blast with Scattered Inferno for blast damage and a lot of status chance once again. Now, I use this combo combination versus all 4 factions. I never swap it out. Blast damage is excellent, it's crowd control, it's gonna knock the enemies on their arse regardless of their level, which is especially useful if you're, for instance, reviving an ally and there is a high level butcher running towards you, which your carrier can't kill on his own. He's just gonna knock him on his arse, and you can revive your ally and then shoot him with your primary weapon. And corrosive damage is very useful because it strips away enemy armor. And even though it doesn't do a lot of damage against the Corpus, it's still kind of good against them. And, you know, it also does a lot of damage versus the other 3 factions, because it does a lot of damage versus the low-tier Grenier that only have ferrite armor. It's gonna get fossilized infested, which are, you know, your Moas, your infested ancients, and your boilers. And it's also really good against the corrupted. Now, the footage I'll be using is from the mission Vedikon series, and this is a level 31 to 33 Exterminate mission. So as you can see, the lower tier Grenier and pretty much all the enemies that take increased damage from corrosive or blast damage, if there are even any, are gonna take a lot of damage from your carrier. And if they don't, like this heavy gunner over here, they're simply gonna get knocked down on their Rs and they can't do anything. And the best thing about this is that your carrier has 20 rounds in a magazine and he only has reload time of 2 seconds. And since he has a lot of fire rate, the chances are when an enemy gets knocked down by either a blast proc or he gets staggered by an impact proc, he's gonna get crowd controlled again before he recovers from the first proc. That is, if he even lives through the first proc, because as you can see, even though this is a status / crowd control build, your carrier is gonna do a lot of damage. I was able to clear this mission very easily, including one pretty tough Exilus Bombard by simply running up to enemies and letting my carrier kill them. I didn't use any of my weapons and the only ability I used with Rhino was Iron Skin. And the blast damage can, be pretty funny at times. So with this build you will have a lot of utility through Vacuum and Guardian and Sanctuary, and also a lot of crowd control because of the blast damage and impact procs, and it still does a pretty good amount of damage, so in my opinion this is the way to go with Carrier Prime. So let's quickly take a look at how the carrier deals with the Exilus Bombard. And I almost forgot, if you want to know how to get all of these mods and all the Sentinel mods that are in the game right now, all you have to do is click the annotation that's on the screen right now, and it will take you to a farming video that I did for all the Sentinel mods, alright? And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching once again, and I will see you next time. Bye bye!